Watch this.
And welcome to the 208 on your Friday. You made it through the week. Thank you for joining us. Well, we don't usually follow community crime notes on the 208, but a recent trend did catch our attention, and it's something serious that we focused on here before on the 208. Members of the LGBTQ community across our state being targeted with not just hateful words, but actual acts of hate and intimidation. And just off the top of my head, I can come up with a whole collection of incidents that we followed just on this show, and that doesn't even include the full scope statewide. Now, on this same topic, a 31-year-old man in Boise now faces 3 counts of felony aggravated assault after Boise police say he yelled homophobic slurs and tried to hit 3 people with his car on 2 separate occasions. There's also evidence that the man is involved with other related incidents in the Boise area. Earlier today, I spoke with the Boise Police LGBTQ liaison officer about the investigation, claims that the man had signaled the incidents online, and the message to the LGBTQ community from investigators. Boise police arrested 31-year-old Matthew Lehigh after investigators say he yelled a threat and a homophobic slur at 2 women standing next to their car before he intentionally drove at them. The women moved away, but their vehicle was hit. Police say that Lehigh essentially did the same thing a few days earlier near downtown Boise, again appearing to target LGBTQ community members. Boise Police LGBTQ liaison Officer Dan Lister has followed the string of targeted actions towards this community in recent months.
Something that we take any crime serious, but especially crimes that people who are specifically targeted due to race, religion, origin, sexual orientation, or identity, we take it specifically serious of it because these people are being attacked just for who they are, and that's not right.
Earlier this month, Boise police investigated the burning of an LGBTQ pride flag that was flying on the porch of a Boise home. And it wasn't the first time that this home was targeted. Homeowner Brett Perry told us that day it feels like the situation of targeted attacks is escalating in recent months.
I'm not surprised. People are feeling able to be violent and to be, aggressive towards each other. It's the political nature that we're in right now. It's very polarized.
Officer Lister says that Lehigh is now charged in connection with that flag burning incident.
Since his arrest, we've been able to add the additional charges of arson in relation to the flag burning that occurred.
Investigators are looking into if Lehigh is also connected to other incidents, like the vandalism and break-in at a Boise LGBTQ+ community center. Videos of Lehigh online include targeted threats and hate speech aimed at this community. BPD says that those videos do appear to be Lehigh based on their investigation. Officer Lister says videos like these come with an important reminder.
We can't control what's put on YouTube, what they allow to be posted, and what YouTube plays out. But if people do see things like that, that's someone specifically targeting or threatening people, it's something that people in the community can let us know. We can look into it, and maybe it might help us be able to reach out and stop something before it happens, or just at least have a better understanding of that it's happening.
Lehigh faces 3 counts of felony aggravated assault stemming from this arrest. He also faced 2 recent charges in Oregon for assault, as well as 2 charges of menacing and criminal trespassing, according to Oregon court records. In Idaho, Lehigh will not be charged with a hate crime, however. Malicious harassment in Idaho is essentially the hate crime statute. However, this arrest doesn't fit the wording of the Idaho statute. Idaho Code 18-7902 says that malicious harassment targeting includes a, quote, person's race, color, religion, ancestry, or national origin. Targeting someone for their sexual orientation or maybe their gender identity, it's not included in the law, so police cannot arrest for it specifically, and prosecutors can't charge because of how the law is written. Now, Lister says regardless of the state statute, incidents targeting the LGBTQ community are taken very seriously.
We as a department still take it incredibly serious, again, because someone's getting attacked or crimes occurring to them just because of who they are, and that's not right for a city or state or for anywhere.
So if you have any information about any recent incidents targeting the LGBTQ community, Boise Police asks that you reach out to them. There are a number of incidents that they are currently looking into. Again, though, their message to the LGBTQ community and the community of Boise as a whole, you live in a safe place and they are watching out for each other. But if you do have information, that is very helpful to investigators. All right, big update for you on the rebate checks being sent out by the state of Idaho, I should say, the governor's office. You may remember during the special legislative session back in September, Idaho lawmakers approved sending Idahoans a rebate check because of the large budget surplus. So everyone who filed taxes in 2020, 2021 in Idaho, they're eligible for a minimum of $300 or 10% of their tax return from 2020, 2021, whenever amount is larger there. Lawmakers and the governor wanted to send Idahoans their money back to help battle inflation costs on just about everything. But as of this morning, here's the latest update from the governor's office. 425,000 special session rebates totaling $212.6 million have been processed. The Idaho State Tax Commission says that they remain confident that most rebates will be sent to Idaho taxpayers who filed on time before Thanksgiving, with as many as 575,000 checks being sent out before the end of November. So there you go. Keep your eyes open for that. If for some reason, though, you did file your taxes late for the season, you will just get your rebate a little bit later. They're being serviced on a first-come, first-served basis. Less than 1 month until Election Day, but there are a few election-related deadlines coming up that you need to know about, and that includes requesting an absentee ballot. The deadline to request one directly through your county clerk's office just passed, but there is good news. You can still request one online. The deadline to do that is October 28th, so you have a little bit of time. Absentee ballots must be dropped off at your county clerk's office or the drop box location by 8 p.m. on Election Day in order for it to be counted. So make sure it gets back. And if you're planning to vote at the polls on Election Day, you can register to vote day of. You will need your state-issued ID, like your driver's license, proof of residency, which must be dated at least 30 days before the election, so you can prove you live here. And we've got all that information and more right now on our voter guide. You can find that on our website, ktvb.com. All right, we've been getting a lot of questions this week about absentee ballots, like this one that says, are absentee ballots counted on election night or only when the race is within 1%? Well, the short answer is this. Every absentee ballot is opened and counted on Election Day, regardless of, if the vote is close or not. They want to make sure that everyone's vote is counted. And they are counted like every other vote that is cast on Election Day. So they are processed in a little bit differently, but when it comes to tallying, it's all the same. And if you're new to the area, you may not know this, the Treasure Valley is home to a lot of military activity and proud veteran groups. Of course, we got Gowan Field right near the Boise Airport, and that serves the Idaho National Guard and the 124th Fighter Wing. And we have the Mountain Home Air Force Base just off to our east, and we are regularly seeing deployments happening, whether it's for training purposes, for National Guard duties like helping with disaster cleanups, even for long-term deployments. And one member of Idaho's armed forces has been gone for 7 months, and yesterday she returned home, much to the surprise of her stepsons. And if you don't have tissues handy, I suggest you grab some right now. This happened at Lake Ridge Elementary School in Nampa yesterday, and the Nampa School District says it's been 7 months since Jameson and Daxton have seen their stepmom, who showed up to their school to surprise them. Welcome home. Thank you for your service. What a wonderful video there. We're going to step aside. 208's back after this. On Tuesday, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game made a big move. They added a local legend, a 7-foot sturgeon. They're going to send that to the MK Nature Center. It's actually there right now. And you're not going to believe this. This is a LeBron James-sized fish. LeBron James. The 7-foot sturgeon was added to the MK Nature Center's cast of aquatic characters. And now the fish friends have a teammate to play center in their pickup games. You can see the workers there loading him into the pond. And the Longfellow, he comes from the Hagerman National Fish Hatchery, where he spent the last several decades. Now, typically, sturgeon have 8 sets of chromosomes, but this guy has 12 sets of chromosomes, and he cannot be released into the wild. Why? Well, because some of those chromosomes have an issue, and he can actually reproduce his offspring. It would either be sterile or future generations of the fish from these adults would be sterile as well. So a genetic issue there. By the way, that now makes 4 large sturgeons at the MK Nature Center. So your chances of seeing one, they're pretty good if you go visit there.
Changing gears to a little bit of our fall weather. I know we've been talking about those higher temperatures and above average temperatures, but we're also seeing the leaves starting to change now. And we did get a little bit of a delayed onset of the changing of colors. So I want to talk a little bit about why. So in order to get a delayed onset by a few weeks, we would have to have a late spring and a severe summer drought. And while we didn't necessarily have a late spring, we did see a really cool June and also a really wet June as well. So it kind of adds to that. And as far as severe summer drought goes, we did continue to see summer drought conditions throughout the summertime, but many spots weren't necessarily severe. So we saw a little bit of some of those, which could be part of the reason why we're seeing a delayed onset with our colors this year. And the temperatures can also play a part in the intensity of those colors. So a warm period during the fall will lower the intensity of the color. So if you're thinking the colors this year aren't quite as bright, could be because of how warm it's been. So what do we need for ideally fall beautiful colors? Well, we need a warm, wet spring. We got the wet spring, but it's a little bit on the cool side. And then favorable summer weather, which I'm assuming to mean about average for summer weather, which we certainly saw above average. And also warm, sunny fall days, we definitely have that. But as far as the cool nights go, we did not get to see a lot of those cool nights. Those really only kicked in starting this week.
Ah, yes, it's Friday. Time now to look back at some of the stories we featured here on the 208 and kind of some of the things you're saying about them. So here are a few of the stories that had you talking this week. Next month, Idahoans will vote on whether or not to change the Idaho Constitution, and voters will decide if the Idaho legislature should be able to call themselves back into legislative session after they've already adjourned for the year. Now, right now in Idaho, only the governor has the power to call lawmakers back. Assistant House Majority Leader, Republican Representative Jason Monks of Meridian, he told me this week that he supports the idea, while House Minority Leader, Democrat Alana Rubel of Boise, she tells me she hopes that Idahoans vote against this ballot question.
I think it's an important function and privilege that we should be allowed to do. I think it's a privilege that's been given to the courts. It's also been given to the governor's office. They don't really have to ask our permission or any other one of the three branches of government to be able to do their job.
My feeling on this is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've been working very well for more than 130 years with the current system that we have, where the governor calls us back in when we're needed to come back in. And I'm really concerned about this proposal to have the legislature call itself back in as many times as they want.
You, the viewers, had comments on the ballot question, and one of those comments comes from former Representative Fred Wood here in the state of Idaho. He texted in and he said, quote, "Brian, the constitutional amendment to allow the legislature to call itself back into session should not pass. That is the first and biggest step to a full-time legislature. A really bad idea." He also said, quote, "It is one of the only checks and balances against a legislature that is out of step with the majority of the citizens." So there you go. Monday was Indigenous Peoples Day, so we looked back on some of the history of Native American pasts here in Idaho, like Eagle Eye Reserve. Now, it is a cluster of rock that sticks out from the foothills in Boise, and it's where Native Americans from the Shoshone, Bannock, and Paiute tribes would gather to bathe in geothermal hot springs. The area is also a burial ground for members of the tribes. Today, it's still considered sacred ground. According to the tribes of Duck Valley and Fort Hall Indian reservations, the valley was a peaceful gathering place where many traveling tribal nations paused to bathe in the healing hot water springs below the rocks. In 1990, a campaign was started to protect and preserve Castle or Eagle Rock from development. Members of area tribes at the time described the space as a source of rejuvenation and spiritual healing. And that campaign was successful, and the land was eventually purchased by a developer and named Castle Rock Reserve. City of Boise also reintroduced 3,000 native plants as a gesture to the significance of healing and spirituality of the area. In 2019, the park in the surrounding foothills near the old state penitentiary, they were renamed Eagle Rock Park in honor, of the area's indigenous people. And the reserve land is now named Chief Eagle Eye Reserve after the leader of a peaceful band of Weiser Shoshone who refused to move to a reservation in 1878 and quietly lived in the Idaho mountains. And that actually prompted this question from Susie asking, quote, "Are the hot springs still there by the sacred rocks near Table Rock?" And the rocks are still there, and much of the area is surrounded by homes and Idaho state property, but the hot springs are no longer visible. Trails in the reserve are also named after the tribes who occupied the area in early Idaho history. Also on Wednesday, one of the most fun stories we got to tell this week, all prompted by our email inbox. Just this week alone, we received no fewer than 10 emails telling us where Boise or Idaho ranks in all kinds of things. Like, did you know Idaho has the 9th lowest rate of violent crime compared with all U.S. states? Or that Boise is one of the country's safest cities, or one of the best cities to drive in. But apparently we're driving around in broken cars because top 10 when it comes to searching for a mechanic. Engage with our cars maybe, but not so much politically. We're one of the worst. And we're also one of the worst for Gen Z, whatever that means. Probably because of our lack of obsession with fashion, 35th out of 50 there. On the flip side, though, we're top 5 when it comes to the fiscal restraint from our governor, but that hasn't helped our overall happiness based on things like personal finance, where fewer than 2% in the Boise area make more than a 6-figure income. And our mental or physical health and our social policies, our people, well, apparently we're living in one of the saddest places, but these are all just lists put together by outsiders. So another ranking list hit our email late Wednesday in the message line, "West Coast residents are the hottest between the sheets this cuffing season." So of course we had to open that email because it was topical for the day, and apparently Ashley Madison, the website that deals strictly with married people looking to have an affair, well, they put together a list of cities where they see the most action from fall to spring, the cuffing season, which is the cold time of year when people are looking for warmth of another person. And guess where we found the city of Boise? Smack dab in the top 10. Number 7, behind 3 Florida cities and Las Vegas, as well as Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, this ranking was based on how many signed up with ashleymadison.com between October 2021 and February 2022. So that's where we got that. And of course, we got some comments about that. It led David to write into us saying, quote, extramarital winter affairs, Boise, I think there was a mix-up. I spent a very cold winter, he says, in Stanley once, where he said he would have cuddled up with the grizzly bear just to stay warm. David, that would have been quite the warm night, right? Don't forget, you can catch up on all of our 208 stories from this week on KTVB.com and on the KTVB YouTube page. Feel free to send those text messages in. I'm reading them in the break. We'll get to some of them here in a few minutes. All right, ahead of Election Day, we are talking with candidates in the race for United States Senate on our Viewpoint program. And the race right now, it's boiling down to the incumbent, Republican Senator Mike Crapo, his Democratic challenger, David Roth, and independent conservative challenger, Scott Cleveland. Senator Crapo and Mr. Roth were guests on Viewpoint in recent weeks, and this week, our guest is independent conservative candidate Scott Cleveland. On Sunday morning, he explains his priorities and stances on the big issues and explains why he is running for Senate as an independent candidate. A major question for any candidate, why are you running? So, especially for an independent candidate, Mr. Cleveland explains why he's running for Senate.
I just look at the job that our leaders are doing. The people in Washington, D.C., on both sides of the political aisle, in my opinion, are failing miserably at serving the best interest of everyday average Idahoan citizens. And I'm resolved to do something about that. That is my agenda here. I'm not looking to make myself famous. I don't necessarily need the benefits or the perks that goes along with a career in Washington, D.C. My heart's in the right place. I'm willing to go serve the citizens because they're not being well represented right now, and that's not right.
And you can learn more about Mr. Cleveland and his background and his views this Sunday morning on Viewpoint. That airs at 9 a.m. every Sunday morning. And if you ever miss it, you can always watch full episodes of Viewpoint on KTVB.com and the KTVB YouTube channel. Of course, our interviews with Mr. Crapo and Mr. Roth are there as well. All right, so we are in for some excitement here. We've got some comments for you, so let's get to the comment board 7000. I think that's the official name for it. Here we are. All right, this person says, hashtag the 208. Members of the LGBTQ community are not protected because Idaho legislatures will not add the words. Shame on them, shame on Idaho. Embarrassed to say I was born and raised here. CC in Meridian. Yeah, CC referring to the Add the Words campaign in recent years, and you might have heard about this. Of course, as we mentioned in our story, the Idaho hate crime statute, which is technically malicious harassment. In Idaho, it does not include sexual orientation or gender identity. There are lawmakers in recent years, and really going back several years, that have tried to get those words added to the Idaho Human Rights Act as part of the Add the Words campaign. So we'll see if this incident impacts that at all. All right, some other questions. We got a lot of questions about the rebate checks. This one says, do you have to be a full-year resident in 2020 to get a rebate check? Thanks. And I'm just going to read this right here off the state of Idaho's website. Who's eligible for the tax rebates? Any Idahoan who is a full-year resident in 2020 and 2021 and who also filed an Idaho individual income tax return or Form 24 for those years are eligible. So there you go. Next question on the rebates. This person says, I think you reported a minimum $300 tax rebate from the state. I pay the state tax here every year, and my rebate was $120. Not sure $300 as a minimum rebate was accurate. So let's be very clear here. When we're talking about the $300 rebate, that is the rebate that the legislature is sending you back. So this is different than your tax return rebate that you might get. This is a special rebate that the legislature approved back in September. So every Idahoan that we just mentioned who is eligible will get a minimum of $300 if you file by yourself, $600 if you file jointly with a couple, or 10% of those tax returns we talked about from the previous year. So whatever is the higher amount, the $300 or the 10%. All right, thank you so much for joining us here on the 208. It has been a fast and fun week, but we will be back next week on Monday. Enjoy the weekend. Go Broncos.